Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection, formerly known as the Inside the Asperger Studios. My next guest grew up looking like he had it all together. Athlete, driven, confident on the outside, but underneath that image was a childhood shaped by fear, trauma, and the quiet belief that he wasn't enough. Today we talk about the truth behind addiction, why abstinence alone doesn't heal trauma, and what it really takes to reclaim your life. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage and let's learn more about them. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection, formerly known as the Inside Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Chase Thayer. Welcome to the show, Chase.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem is I like to always ask my guests, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself before we get going?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Chase Thayer. 43 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I've got three children. Um, I'm from Utah originally, and I I work in the healthcare space, and I have for about 20 years now, working with individuals, everything from substance abuse issues to mental health diagnoses, and really got into that line of work because of my own personal experience with struggles with both things, mental health wise, and substance abuse, which I used to kind of cover my mental health stuff that was going on that was undiagnosed, um, and yeah, I've kind of just used my different life tests to kind of turn into a positive in what I do for a living now. So I love sports, animals. Me and my partner live on 12 acres. We've got dogs, cats, sheep, cows, and we just live in the country, and life is awesome.
All right. Let's start off with who is Chase Thayer today and what feels most important in your life right now?
Chase there today. I'd say a father, a partner, um, and then someone who dedicates his time to helping others find that inner peace and happiness that they're seeking, to work through their struggles and different tests and difficulties that they have. Yeah.
Now, how different is that answer feel from who you thought you were supposed to be growing up?
Ooh. That's a great question. Oh man, growing up, I would have told you I was supposed to be a professional baseball player. So totally 180 degrees from what I do now, for sure.
All right. You said fear was a contrast presence growing up. How did that show up in your everyday? How did that show up for you day to day as a kid?
What was it? I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
You said fear was a contrast present growing up.
With fear.
How did that show up for you day to day as a kid?
Man, that's a good question. So it started really young, probably around like 5 or 6 years old, and a lot of those memories are foggy, but um, a lot of the fear was instilled from my father, unfortunately, um, who we have a great relationship today. That's changed dramatically, which is another thing I never thought would have happened. But he was a very successful guy who grew up poor and started his own company and took a lot of his stress and daily angst out, maybe a little bit too much on his home life. And I remember at a young age kind of making a conscious decision to take some of this energy that he was directing towards my mom when he'd come home and like maybe be mad or upset or whatever. And I remember like sitting being like, I'm gonna make it so he doesn't do that to my mom but to me. instead. And so I started literally like acting out and like getting into little bits of trouble. So when he would come home, he wouldn't, yell at my mom, but rather he'd come home and find out I'd gotten in trouble and he would do it to me. And so I lived in like a fear, like, man, when I hear him walking the door, coming up the steps, anything, like there was just a lot of fear, and that went on for a very long time. And then I wasn't diagnosed with like ADHD until I was actually my oldest daughter got diagnosed when she was 10. So I was actually like 37 years old. So it was just like 6 years ago I officially got diagnosed. But I knew years ago that I definitely struggled with that. School was always really hard for me growing up. Um, and like reading, I could read fine, like I was smart, but like I couldn't retain the information unless if it was like interesting to me. And I didn't know that that was like one of the big things about ADD is like that's literally how my mind works, is if it's not intriguing or if it doesn't interest me, my brain has no time for it. This is
Mhm.
like nope. And so school was really tough, and my family was very religious household, so going to church every Sunday was that's just what we did. It wasn't an option. And I'd like have to read the Bible and the different books and stuff, and I would, but I wouldn't remember anything. So I was always getting in trouble because he thought I was lying, saying I read it, but I didn't, but I really did. Just couldn't remember the information. And so it just became like I just lived in fear because it was like I'm not good at anything except for sports. And so that's why like I really dedicated everything to like I'm gonna be a professional athlete because it's the only thing I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else. Like literally I'm not. And I'm just like a dumb jock, as like what I considered myself at a very young age, and that's really sad because I'm much more than that. But I didn't know that then, and so yeah, it was just a constant fear of just never going to be enough for any person, anything, any job, anything. I'm just going to be alone and a failure, and I just kind of lived like that for a long time.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head when it about ADHD so many times. I mean, people don't realize when you have ADHD, if it doesn't hold your attention, you can't be interested in it no matter how hard you try.
You can't.
And this is one of the things I tell parents a lot when they ask me what I should do about my kid who wants to go to school. I'm like, make sure they choose a program that meets what they are having interest in. And before they even go to college, I tell them, have them do their gen ed in a community college or junior college because it's cheaper and then they can get right to their program in the 4 year. Because
Smart.
other yeah, because otherwise they're gonna sit there through their gen eds in the 4 year and they're gonna be miserable.
Oh yeah.
Let them don't force them to take a program they're interested in. Let them choose what they want. And that's what they're gonna gravitate towards. And what I mean, that also takes place in the workspace is what companies don't realize is if you don't challenge us in our own role, we lose focus. And if we lose focus, we get uninterested. We get uninterested. We want to find something new. That's
Yep.
why you lose a lot of employees who probably have ADHD and don't know it is they're not challenged enough.
Yeah. So true.
Now, you had mentioned that adults, especially men, felt intimidating and unapproachable. How did that shape how you learned to exist in the world?
Oh, for a long time, it was like became a chameleon. I set my own standard and my own bar really low. I didn't expect much from myself, and really just kind of thought my role was to just be a yes man, really like work for somebody and just do what you're supposed to. Don't make a lot of noise. Just get the job done, and avoid getting in trouble. It was like I had this fear of like getting in trouble, or like something was going to happen. Um, just from my childhood, just always getting in trouble. And so it was like, you know, most of my, coaches and then employers or whatever, it was like the types of jobs I had or whatever, like they were men typically. And so it was like just this constant, I didn't know it then, but like looking back and after doing a lot of the, inner child work I've done on myself, and, a lot of the deep therapeutic work that I've done is like helped me realize that I was going to my wounded inner child, and functioning out of that place so much in my life where, um, fear was just constantly ruling me.
Now, do you notice that response today at all?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm aware of it, and it doesn't happen nearly as, I mean I've done a lot of work especially the last like 6 7 years, with a therapist, and I've gone to some like intensive group stuff, and done a lot of work around this stuff specifically because it really did cripple me in so many ways, and limited me in so many ways. Because I'm much more than that, and I am smart, and I have my talents and my skills, but I didn't realize that, and it just took some time to kind of tune into that stuff and realize. But yeah, no, I had to do a lot of work around that. I mean, we're never, in my opinion, I'm never perfect. I'm never, got it figured out. Like I'm constantly evolving. I'm constantly changing. Um, my interests change. I as a person have changed so much, um, that I just have to continue to do work on myself. I believe in order to like be the best version of me.
Now, you've leaned into the dumb jock role because it felt easier. What did that role protect you from, and what did it quietly take away from you?
It protected me definitely from failure to a degree, um, because I already kind of put myself in that box of being one. And so I kind of really limited my abilities to become something or someone. Like I just kind of really put myself in a small box. Um, Shoot, I'm trying to remember the whole question. Sorry.
You want me to repeat it for you?
Yeah, please.
You leaned into the dumb jock role because it felt easier. What did that role protect you from, and what did it quietly take away from you?
Mhm. Yes, okay. Um, So yeah, I thought it was protecting me from a lot of pain and hurt and failure. But truthfully, that's really what I took away from myself was that ability to fail, to make mistakes, to grow, and to like evolve even more. I mean, it still happened in its own way, but I really think that me trying to be cautious or careful, I really took away, a lot of ability to have growth and experience a lot more stuff. But life's a long journey, so I've got time to make up some of that stuff.
Now, growing up with ADHD in the 90s, what was school like? What was the school system like? Did did it really understand how your brain worked?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And again, like I really think like the religious side of things prevented my folks from even looking into like seeing a doctor sooner, um, because that's just like their beliefs was like God took care of it. I mean, and it is true, but you know, going and seeing a doctor would have been really good when I was struggling with school a lot. Instead of my dad just thinking I didn't try hard enough and didn't care enough. And what's been funny actually is my dad's got really bad ADHD that he didn't realize obviously until he was much much older. Like, and so he struggled with school, but he never shared that. He hid that stuff. And so, which is so weird, but yeah, there I go with my ADD. Just totally went sidewall. But it's yeah, I'll stop there.
Now, what do you wish one teacher had noticed?
Mm. Yeah, oh, man. I wish there was a few that would have noticed that it wasn't me not caring as much as me just really having a difficult time um, retaining the information,
Yeah.
because often I would just be, deemed like a disruptor or like a class clown or, that jock kind of role. And but it wasn't all the time. Like I really started doing it more as like time went on because it made sense, because nothing else was working. Sitting in class quietly, trying to listen, paying attention, like I couldn't. It wasn't working, and nothing was retaining. And so, yeah.
Now, you've mentioned baseball, which has become your lifeline. What did it give you that nothing else in your life could at that time?
Mhm. A sense of like succeeding at something, being good at something. Um, just yeah, like really that, like being able to be good at something. Because sitting in school, like people, a teacher asks a question, people raise their hands and answer and they're right. And it's like, man, I don't know. Like, how do they know that? But like put me on a baseball field and like, I can do do the whole thing and do it all and just feel so confident. It gave me confidence. It gave me just a sense of purpose and being. So it's like I was liked because of it. Even my teachers in high school, like, I don't know how I graduated with being like eligible to play, because I did not do good in school, yet somehow here I was getting by. And it was really the teachers were like giving me a pass. They didn't do me any justice though, because when I got to college, that didn't help. I mean, I blew out in a very short time. Lost my scholarship, and then that there went my identity. And yeah, that was tough.
Now, you had to pay your own way to play. How did learning to hustle so young shape your relationship with success and self-worth?
Mm. That I'm definitely grateful to my father. He instilled hard work at a young age. Yeah, I started playing on a travel baseball team at 12 years old, and um, like I would travel all over the western part of the United States and into the Midwest a little bit, all the way from 12 through high school until I went to college. And my dad was like, that first year, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not paying for this. This is gonna get expensive." He's like, "If you want to do this, you can. You're gonna pay for it." And he was an entrepreneur, and I have that in me. And so I started a detailing business, detailing cars and boats in my neighborhood where I grew up, and that paid my way for. And literally, he never cared. Like I could travel and do all of it as long as I paid for it. Um, so yeah, I'm grateful for that. Like that's taught me, hard work pays off. Hard work, you get results, you can get things, you can do stuff, and that obviously mattered as you become an adult, and you need to live on your own. And there's so many learning curves in that alone. But yeah.
Now we're going to take a darker turn here. You describe your first experience with alcohol as freedom. Freedom from what?
Freedom from that sense of being this dumb jock, stupid, like all the negative thoughts that were running through my head about myself on a regular basis, like substances, like made that go away. Like it was like something I was good at, and became like a party, like the life of the party, very bubbly, outgoing, like making friends with everybody. Um, that just became like this false sense of who I was. It wasn't my, authentic self by any means. Like, but it was people liked that. version that I created. And so it was like, that's just, I capitalized on that and really rode that train for way too long.
Now, after your injury and opiates entered the picture, did it feel like a turning point or more like accelerating something already there?
Man, kind of both, really. It was like the opiates, like alcohol and like smoking pot, like is how what it started when I was like 15. Um, but when I got prescribed those painkillers, like the first time I took them, it literally was like, oh man, this is it. Like this is the sauce. Like this is what I need to feel okay. Um, it made nothing like, I mean, really, it just numbed me out, you know. But what it felt like it was doing was providing like this warm blanket of comfort, and everything's going to be okay. Um, but that couldn't have been further from the truth, you know. 10 years from that first time, 10 years went on of using it pretty much every day, and it progressed to a very scary part in place, to a person that I never in a million years would have thought I would have become, or positioned, or places I would have ended up in. And that was scary.
Mm. Now, we're going to take another dark turn here. I want to talk about something that's really personal to you, and that's losing your brother.
Mm.
During your senior year, during your senior year changed everything. How did that grief alter your relationship with substances and with yourself?
Yeah. So at this time, I'm 17. It's this was July of 2000. Um, at this point, my father and I's relationship was, you know, not good at all. I was in trouble all the time, grounded all the time. And then I'm the oldest of five kids. And so the youngest sibling, he was born when I was 14. And I'm close with all my siblings and was close with all of them. You know, I started babysitting them when I was 9. You know, when parents would go like on a date night, they would leave me with these little kids. And so I feel like I grew up really fast, and became a lot more like mature in some ways than maybe I would have otherwise.
Mm.
But it, I had a very close bond with all my siblings because of like how much I got in trouble, where like I couldn't go out and hang out with my friends a lot of the time, so I would be home, and so I'd be playing with my siblings, and you know it gave us even more time to bond and come together. And
Mhm.
um, but losing him was it stirred up a lot of stuff. One major thing was like I remember thinking like that should have been me for sure. Like my parents would probably want that. My dad definitely would rather it be me than him. And so I lived with that for a long time of like a survivor's guilt thing where it's like he was so innocent and good, like had his whole life ahead of him. But I'm like this fuck up already. Sorry, like I'm already this messed up kid who's making all these poor decisions. And 17, his dad wishes he was somebody else and a different kid. Like that should be me, not him. You know. And that fueled my addiction big time. Like I started taking more risks, um, progressing further into different substances I said I would never do. Um, just really on like a self-sabotage, suicide mission, really. Just I didn't care.
Now, back then, did you actually have any time to grieve at all?
Um, Looking back, I mean, no, and almost like not allowed to. Like our grief was supposed to be more like, yes, you can be sad, but like our religion, we believe in this, and so like you just have to be, you know, you have to know everything's going to be okay and everything's fine. And it was almost like I felt like everyone was kind of hiding behind some fake warm blanket that they wanted, you know, because like it just became a struggle for me because you know I believe in God, and you know I didn't like stop believing in him or anything. I definitely was resentful or angry or whatever, but it was just like I didn't believe in the same necessarily the same type of beliefs that my parent. How do I explain that? Like something didn't just sit right with me. Was I don't know how to explain this. Hmm.
Just take your time. All right. If you need to breathe, just let it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just really became lost, and nothing made sense. It was like I've been taught all these things I'm supposed to believe in, and none of it felt right. Nothing made sense. And I mean, it really propelled my use even more. Like I said, taking more risk. Like I would get high like all day, 24/7, if I, as much as I could, during school, at school, just really taking stupid risks. And, but yeah, I mean, I didn't care. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Anyway, you went through multiple rehab focused on abstinence. When did you realize the substances weren't the core issue?
Hmm. That would have been when I was 24, almost 25. About 20, well, I'll say 25 because I went to my like fifth or sixth place, which happened to be the last one I went to, and things clicked. And I was, yeah, like 25. And um, it was probably about 60 to 90 days of abstinence. It was like the longest I'd ever been sober since I started using things at 15. I had never gone more than like, a couple days or, you know, hours, if anything, it was like I always needed to have something or be on something or escape somehow, some way. And so once I hit like that, like 2 or 3 months of sobriety, and I was working on myself and taking a look in the mirror and really looking inward and seeing my patterns and my behaviors, and I had to stop pointing the finger and blaming my dad and blaming the religion and blaming the da 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 da, and like really take ownership for my own actions. No one was making me do anything. I was doing it. And at some point, when was enough enough? And when am I going to stop hitting my head against the wall? And that was kind of the time that took place. It was like, okay, you know, I had like experienced like genuine happiness and joy in those few months, like that I hadn't felt in a long time, that really motivated me to want to continue on. And that's when I realized, like, the question, you know those 2 3 months of taking away the substances, it didn't take away my problems. And so I realized, okay, the drugs and alcohol, I'm not using that stuff, but yet life is still what it is. And so clearly the drugs, the alcohol, that's not the problem. Like those things, if anything, probably saved my life or kept me alive longer. Um, because if I didn't have that, who knows how dark my head would have got, like at least that numbed me out and, gave me a reason to be around. But that stuff stopped working too. It didn't numb me out. It didn't take care and do the job. But that's probably the time I realized, like, oh man, like drugs and alcohol, that's not the problem. Like I'm the problem. My perception, my views, the way I'm seeing things, the way I, you know, move through life right now need to be changed. All that needed to be looked at. So yeah, it was like my fifth or sixth time in treatment, and that's when it finally I finally realized, wasn't the drugs and alcohol weren't the problem. Because I would leave a rehab and be like, okay, I'm just not going to do that drug, or I'm not going to drink that. I'm just going to smoke pot. I'm just going to do this. But it always ended up back doing anything and everything because the problem wasn't that, it was here in my head.
Now, you've learned that addiction is rooted in trauma. How did that realization change the way you approach recovery?
Oh, it changed big time. You know, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a big tool for people, obviously, in seeking recovery. Um, and I still recommend, people go to 12-step meetings. They're very helpful. Working a 12-step program is extremely helpful in your recovery and necessary. However, it's not the answer, completely answer. It's not, like it gives you a lot of tools and there's a lot of positives that come along with it, with community and whatnot. But there's a lot more work that has to be done that you're not going to get in AA. There's no therapist in AA. Your sponsor is not a therapist. Your sponsor is someone who's taking you through the 12 steps. And so, um, working with a therapist and working with professionals and diving into that inner child work, because I do believe it's rooted in trauma. Addiction is rooted in trauma. Um, because we don't want to feel what we're feeling. We don't want to, we can't handle having, these thoughts or the way we feel about ourselves. And so that's typically why people will, reach for a substance and um, to escape.
Mhm.
Um, you hear it all the time. It's like, oh, I just need to just get off work and I need a drink so bad because life was such a stressful day. I just want to take the edge off. It's like, it's actually worse for you. It's like after
Mhm.
learning how the brain works, it actually compounds the problem. So, um, yeah.
Now, you've talked about the first year of recovery being critical. What do most people misunderstand about that first year?
Um, One, I think the way that the whole treatment kind of system is set up was messed up from the beginning, where the 28-day treatment idea that they kind of pumped out into society of you go to rehab for 30 days and you come back and you're good. And that's just not the case. Like nobody fixes their issues in 30 days or 60 or 90 or a year or 5 years. It's like it's an ongoing process. Kind of like what we were talking about at the beginning was when you and I were just chatting, like I'm constantly evolving and changing. Like um, and I'm having to do work on myself and keep doing work on myself because I can easily fall back into patterns and behaviors from before, because I have this little box of unhealthy coping skills, that I can very easily fall back into. And so it's really important that I work on myself and I practice these things in all my affairs and try to implement them daily and work on that because man, it's a slippery slope.
Now, you've talked about healing the whole family is central to your work. Why can't healing happen in isolation?
Mm. Um, well, I just think humans are like, we need connection. We need connection with other people. It doesn't have to be you don't have to have tons of friends, but having people in your life is helpful. And I think isolation is okay too at times. Healthy alone time is a good thing. But there is something to be said about too much alone time. Um, but I think community and working with the whole family is super important for me because it's not just, when I get a phone call that Johnny needs an intervention because he's struggling with substances, you know, chances are there's a lot more going on than just Johnny drinking and using substances, there's other stuff. And so, I like to get in and just from my own experience, I know in my own family dynamic, it may have looked like a certain way to people on the outside, but I knew what was going on behind closed doors. And I've seen how it affected both of my sisters who never touched a substance in their life, had their own struggles and their own difficulties as a result of, kind of what their role was within the family system. Like my
Mhm.
sisters didn't really have any room for error because me and my brother were the ones who were messing up, and so it's like they had to be the good ones and carry that weight and almost have like this unspoken expectation of like their role in the family. And my oldest, I'm the oldest, the sister right below me, she had like a pretty bad breakdown not too long ago, like in her early 30s, where she couldn't leave her house, let alone her bedroom, for over a year, and just riddled with anxiety and depression, and a lot of that stemmed from her childhood and teenage years being around me, where all the focus was on me. I was causing problems or not, but I was like the focus, and she was just kind of expected to be good, and it was almost like it just became too much for her. And so I've just found that, like, no two people are the same. You can't tell someone, you know, what they're feeling is trauma or not trauma. Like no two people, like, everybody experiences things the way that they experience them. And it's not my place to tell someone that their trauma isn't as big or significant
No.
as somebody else's trauma. Like it's just not this is not how it works. And so, um, I think that happens a lot in family systems where the firstborn, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is, like everybody kind of has this like universal role. Like the middle child gets kind of like a bad rap for being like a troublemaker or whatever because they just were kind of left in the medium where like the oldest gets babied and favored and the youngest gets babied and favored,
Yeah.
And this family system is so interesting. Like I love the family system work. But it's very important to me because if they send someone, someone gets sent off to treatment, they're going to come back home. Chances are, if the family doesn't do some work on themselves and change some of their expectations or how they communicate with their loved one instead of talking down to them, like there's just
Mhm.
so many different little things that go into it. Um, where, like, right up to this point, the failure of the industry I'm in is less than 10% success rate. And people go away for 30 days and then they go back home and the relapse rate is just through the roof. The average male goes to like 15 rehabs now, which is just like, what? How is that even okay? Like, it's not, but it's a failing system that is very lucrative. um and my dream and goals and aspirations are to help fix that broken system.
Now, that leads us into our next point. Let's talk a little bit about Austin coaching. What was missing in your recovery journey that led you to create Austin Integration Coaching?
Okay, yeah. So, um, for myself and for my family, like there was not they didn't have like a person to call and help them navigate the process. They kind of just were going off of what they saw on the show Intervention and what little bit was available online back in, the early 2000s, um, which wasn't much. And so as I got into my sobriety and into my career, um, it didn't take long to realize, like, I worked for a number of different places where it was like this missing component was like this family piece and like this planning and preparing for treatment and for after treatment and for while they're away, and just all the different things that get touched on a little bit by programs and rehab facilities. Like they do family programs and they'll tell families like you guys need to follow this aftercare plan, but there is no one there to ensure that they actually do. And so I kind of saw this like missing this gap of like insurance, like an insurance policy for families. Like they spend this money or whatever to send their kid to a treatment center. Like let's insure that a little bit here. And so a lot of what I do is get phone calls from families and work with clients that are coming like out of rehab and then transitioning either to like a sober living or back to their parents' house or to their own place or whatever it is, and then kind of working with them over the next few months, 6 months. A lot of times people extend into like a year or more, of kind of like working through life's struggles and life's, you know,
Mhm.
challenges, and really learning to kind of implement like what they learned in treatment into their daily life and routine so they don't fall back into those same patterns.
Now, when parents reach out to you, what's the biggest misconception about rehab and fixing the problem?
That there is no fix. Helping families lower their expectations around the process and how it actually goes. Not to, really that, like helping right size expectations with families. Because they'll be like wanting, say I get a call from a kid, a family that's got a kid that's 18 to 25 years old. 90% of those families, their main focus is they're worried about getting their loved one back into college or back on their path of like college and schooling and career. And it's like getting people to pump the brakes on that stuff and realize that that's always going to be there. They can go back to school anytime, but they might not be alive anymore if we don't do this right. And that's
Yeah.
just the facts, especially the way substances are being used these days. Everything's cut with fentanyl. The drugs on the streets are deadly. Like people are dying all the time. It's crazy. And so, really helping families understand like the order of importance here and what matters the most, which they all agree, their loved one's life. And so let's take this little bit of time right now to focus on getting that part right and not worried about kind of like life's stuff that stuff's gonna be there. Like let's not worry about school right now and you know worry about that stuff. Like let's focus on keeping them alive.
And for someone listening who feels stuck, either struggling themselves or loving someone who is, what do you want them to hear? What do you want them to hear today?
There's always hope. Even when you feel like there's no chance, there's always hope. I've seen some pretty crazy stuff, some people in some pretty heinous situations and scenarios where you would think there's no way that person was going to turn it around or get sober or find a better life. Um, and that's just the magic is there waiting. Like miracles are there waiting. Like sometimes people just need that one more chance that they don't really deserve. Um, but really that just there's always hope. And whether they can always reach out to me, like you can put my contact info up. I get a lot of phone calls where I don't, you know I just help people get in the right place and go in the right direction, or just be an ear to listen to for a little bit, because it's a scary thing to have your loved one struggling and messing around with substances or with their life, or like depression, suicide, like, and all those things are amplified as of like 2026. Like suicide's up, dramatically. Self-harm is up dramatically. Hospitalizations for self-harm and drug overdoses, like everything has gone up hundreds of percentages over the years. And a lot of that is, in my belief, is due to, you know, internet and social media, which there's a lot of good and amazingness that comes with that. And then there's a lot of bad and darkness that comes with it too. And we've seen such an increase in um, medications and hospitalizations and suicides and attempts over the last like 5 years, 6 years, alone from since COVID, but just because social media, you know, so many people's emotions and self identity and self worth is tied up into how many likes and follows and friends they have on social media.
All right. Now, the last question. What does reclaiming your life actually look like for you now in the quiet, everyday moments?
just that I'm here and alive and free, and that I get an opportunity to do something each and every day as long as I choose to. I forget that sometimes, and the choices I was making and the life I was leading 20 years ago, I could just as easily be dead or in prison. And that's the reality, and I'm not. And so it's like each day is like a cherry on top, and it's just trying to remember that and try to stay in that moment and stay in that gratitude for me.
And finally, where can people reach out to you and find you online?
Yeah, so my website is austinintegrationcoaching.com, and you can go on there. My cell phone, email, everything's is on there.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Chase Thayer, and I want to remind everybody, you're never alone. See you in the next one, everybody. Thank you, Chase.
Thank you.